Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera, where I'm coming to you again from the park. It's a very nice day today. So nice today I decided it would be a great day to come out and make a video. For the past few weeks it's been kind of either cold, windy, or rainy or whatever, and I haven't been able to get out very much. But today is so beautiful, it's just the perfect day to come out and make a video. Subject of today's video is going to be a Leotax camera. As you can see by the name on the lens cap and also on the top of the camera here. I don't come across a lot of Leotax cameras, not that they're really hard to find here, but I haven't really had a lot of experience with them, and so I decided I would go ahead and pick up a few and kind of dig into them and see what they're like. Do some repair work and whatever, and hopefully list a few for sale in my stores. For those of you who are new to my channel, I sell vintage Japanese cameras in my online store, japanvintagecamera.com. I have an Etsy store which is also called Japan Vintage Camera, so if you'd like to buy this Leotax or another vintage Japanese camera, please visit one of my stores. I'll post links to my stores in the description below the video. So, getting back to my Leotax here, I believe I did a video on the Leotax or semi-Leotax medium format 6x45 camera a few months ago. Leotax is not really known for those cameras so much. They are very well known for these old Leica copies, which they produced for a period of around 20 years or so. The first ones were produced during wartime in 1940, and those were rather a simple and rather primitive Leica copy camera. Due to shortages of materials and tooling and such like that, they're quite hard to come by. But in the post-war years, Leotax began producing more and more cameras, and eventually they became one of the larger manufacturers of these Leica copy cameras. These were made up until 1960 or so a good 20-year run of these. And over the years they got better and better in terms of quality, fit and finish, reliability and everything else. This particular version is known as the Leotax K, which I believe came out in maybe 1957, 1958, something like that. And this is probably I believe this is the simplest of the Leotax Leica copy cameras of that time. You can tell the K because it doesn't have a slow speed shutter dial on the front. It's kind of a simplified version of the more expensive Leotax T. And another kind of giveaway of the K model is this more simplified top core 5cm or 50mm f3.5 lens, where most of these cameras came with f2.8 or even an f2 lens. Despite this being the least expensive of the Leotax cameras, it still features the same quality, fit and finish and workmanship of the late 50s cameras, and all these are excellent. This is a very well made camera and just as smooth and easy to use as a real Leica. By the 1950s, of course, Japan had been producing cameras for a long time, and the quality of I guess materials and machining and metallurgy and all that was much better than the 1920s and 30s when the first Leica cameras came out. And though I really do love the Leica cameras, I've had a few of the old Barnacks over the years, I can't say that these Japanese copies are in any way inferior. And they are a much better value, with the exception being the more hard to find ones, which have become quite collectible, and especially over the last year or so. So let's go ahead and take a look at the features, controls, and functions of the Leotax Model K, starting at the top here. As you can see, this camera is completely flat on the top. If you look, it's kind of a straight line all the way across, and it's made flat like this because that makes loading the film easier. All you have to do is just set the camera upside down on a table. And this is a bottom loading camera, so if you're able to set the camera somewhere and use both hands to load it, it makes it much easier. So that's the reason for the flat top, and I'll describe loading the camera a little later in the video, and you'll see why having a flat top is a really convenient feature. We'll go ahead and start on the left side here. We have the film rewind dial, and on these cameras it's pretty cool because if you turn it a little bit to the left, it pops up like that, and it holds itself up, which makes it easier to rewind the film. On some cameras you kind of have to pull it up as you wind the film, and sometimes you're winding it kind of pushes down, you have to pull it back up. At least with the Leotax camera it stays in the upright position. To lock it down, push it down and turn it a little bit to the right and it stays in place. We have a shoe for mounting a flash gun here, and you can plug in the flash on this PCC socket on the back. If you're operating a flash, you can use either a bulb or a strobe flash. There's a selector switch on the front here, which looks like a self-timer on some of the later cameras, but this allows you to select between either using a strobe flash or a regular bulb flash. I don't do a lot of photography with flash, especially these old vintage cameras, which is kind of a shame because when I play around with the flash in these old cameras, I always like the results I get. It's especially fun for shooting people outdoors at night and stuff like that. It's a great way to freeze the action and get interesting photographs, which are different than the usual daytime kind of stuff. So if I get this camera going again, maybe I'll go ahead and try out one of my old bulb or old strobe flashes and go out and have some fun with it. Next to that we have the shutter speed dial, and as I said, there's only one dial on this camera. And like the old Leica cameras, it works the same way. You have to kind of pull up on the dial like so before you can adjust the different speeds. Like on Leica cameras, it's recommended you wind the film and charge the shutter before selecting the shutter speed. The shutter here has a kind of a minimal selection of speeds from bulb and 1/4 of a second up to 1/500th of a second. This is kind of a minimalist kind of thing. It doesn't have a lot of, I guess, options as far as shutter speeds go. On the positive side, the more simple shutter is more accurate and more reliable than the more sophisticated shutters, which give you, I guess, a larger menu of speeds. Moving over here, we have this switch here, which switches between R and A. This is the winding mechanism release switch. If you turn it to R for release, that allows you to rewind the film. And once you have rewound the film and load in the new film, switch it over to A, and then wind the film and cock the shutter, and the camera is ready to go. Here we have the shutter release button. I'm not doing a demonstration of the shutter on this camera because one of the shutter speed ribbons is broken. I got this really cheap, and that's one of the reasons I got it so cheap, because it's going to take a fair amount of work to take this thing apart and replace the broken shutter ribbon. Next to that we have the film winding dial, or knob I should say, and it has a really, I guess, fine knurling like you have on the Leica cameras, not the really rough kind like you find on the Russian copy cameras like the FED1 or Zorky cameras. Below that we have the film counter dial, which you have to reset manually when you load the film. There are a couple of knobs on either side, or bumps, whatever you want to call them, and this allows you to turn the film to 0 when you have the film loaded in it. On the very top here we have this kind of colored dial, which is kind of the giveaway sign of the, say, Leotax T and K cameras. And this is just a kind of a reminder to let you know what kind of film you have loaded in the camera. It doesn't really mean anything. If you know what the kind of film you have in it, don't worry about it. But if you're a person who changes the film from time to time, say between color and black and white or 100 and 400, this comes in handy to let you know what film you have loaded in the camera. As this is a Barnack camera, moving to the back here, there's nothing at all to look at. We have the separate viewfinder and rangefinder eyepieces here. The viewfinder in these cameras is perfectly well suited to the 50mm lens. It gives you a really good field of view and allows you to accurately frame your subject. Unless you start to get really close, you can't focus very close on one of these cameras, but as you come close, you have to keep in mind that the lens is not pointing exactly the same direction as the viewfinder, so as you get closer and closer, there's going to be more of a difference between what the lens sees and what your eye sees. But as you get out, say to the distance where you're taking photos of, say, portraits or further away, it's nothing of an issue. But as I said, you can't really focus these cameras all that close anyway, so not too much of an issue, but something to keep in mind. This finder is only for the 50mm lens. If you're going to use, say, a 28 or 35mm lens, or a longer short telephoto or telephoto lens, you'll have to attach an accessory, a viewfinder, to the flash shoe on the top. As this is a Leica L-mount camera, you can use any Leica L-mount lens made by Leica or Canon, or in this case, this is a top core lens. Nikon also produced lenses for the Leotax camera. Fuji, Fujinon, Konica, lots of different lens options. That's one of the things which makes these old Barnack Leica copy cameras so interesting. So there are so many different kinds of lenses you can use on them. All right. On the front here, we have the three windows here. We have two of them for the rangefinder, and there's some magnification on the rangefinder here, which allows you to do more precise focus when you're shooting at larger apertures. And in the middle of the camera here, we have the viewfinder window itself. For adjustments on the camera, we have this big screw here, and if you remove this screw, underneath you'll find a small set screw, or what looks like a set screw, and that's what you use to make the infinity adjustment on the camera. For the vertical adjustment, you have to remove this knurled ring here and turn the glass one way or another to move the image up or down until the vertical adjustment is correct. Loading the film in these cameras, as I demonstrated in the Yashica YE video a couple of months ago, is not especially easy. You have a film chamber on one side and you have a take-up spool on the other side. To load the film, you have to kind of take out the take-up spool, like so. It pops out like this. And as I said, the camera is made flat on the top for a reason. That's so you can set it down on a flat surface, and that way you can put in your take-up spool and your film canister and put them in at the same time. Like the other Barnack style cameras, you have to trim the film leader on your 35mm film to get it to fit into the camera properly. These cameras don't have like the little sticker guide which shows you where to cut, and there are lots of other places on the internet which can tell you how to do it. When I load these cameras, what I do is I pull out the film leader on the 35mm film and I count. I believe it's 17 holes on one side of the film, and starting at the end of the leader from about, say, 1/3 from the bottom, I'll cut at an angle until I get to the 17th hole on the film. And you do it so the tapered angle goes down and the flat surface stays toward the bottom of the camera, and the tapered surface goes down, and that helps the film slide behind the pressure plate. That's the only difficult thing about these cameras. They make these kind of metal clamp things. You clamp the end of the film leader on, you just cut them with a Swiss Army knife or razor blade or whatever. Those are really fast and a good way to do it. You can buy those things on eBay. The copies are really cheap. Leica made them back in the 20s and 30s. They're quite expensive nowadays, so wouldn't mess with the original ones. For myself, I just use the 17 hole guide and just cut it at an angle. You don't have to be very accurate or precise. So long as you're close, you'll be able to get the film in the camera. Of course, you thread the end of the film on the take-up spool. You push both parts in here, holding the camera backwards like so, until they lock into place. Make sure that the film is all the way down inside, and then just replace the bottom cover like so. Lock it like that, and simply wind the film and depress the shutter a few times, and the camera's ready to go. Reset your counter to the arrow here, and the camera's ready to shoot. So anyway, that's it for my video about the Leotax K rangefinder camera. It's going to take me maybe a week or 10 days or so to work on this camera. It's been kind of busy recently, and I have a lot of cameras and repairs and things backed up. So if you're interested in this camera, please check back sometime after next week. This weekend we're going to be going out of town for a couple of days, so if there's any delay in response to emails or messages or things like that, that's why. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.